both amazing, talented people. And really nice guys.
I want a snappy dresser.
And good hat pickers. So good morning. I guess some of you may be thinking, I thought she moved to England. What the heck is she doing? But yes, I am here again. And Juliet and I set the intention a couple of years ago to spend half our time in the US and half our time in the UK. And whether we're ready or not, Spirit's delivering. We're in the country on business and thought we'd drop by. So here we are. So one of the things that Juliet and I are into is free coffee. There's a store called Waitrose in the UK, and it's an upscale store. You know, they have really nice products and stuff. And they offer free coffee to people who hold their membership cards, which we do. So a few times a week we go for our free cappuccino. That ends up costing us about 20 pounds or $30 because we pick up a lot of things. One of the things that we pick up is the New Scientist magazine. So if you're a cellular biologist or some other unemployed scientist and you want to work at Oxford or something, you can pick this up and they have their ads in for their available positions. But they also have some brilliant articles. And what's going on in science these days is they are doing all sorts of studies looking at things like consciousness and belief. Things that we've been talking about for years. And you know what? They are scientifically showing what we've been talking about and what has been talked about for thousands of years is actually true. It's provable. So this particular edition talks about belief. And it used to be that they talked about wanting to study beliefs, but what they realized was their beliefs were getting in the way of the study of the belief. Because they now understand that our reality is created by our beliefs. Sound familiar? Yeah. But one of the things that they can do now is objectively look at beliefs and study them because they have things like MRIs and other tools. So there was one particular study that just happened to be at UCLA where they were looking at beliefs by putting people into a brain scanner and having them listen to different statements that they may or may not believe is true. And this is what they found. I'm using my high-tech stuff today. The neuroscientific investigation of belief began in 2008 when Sam Harris at the University of California, Los Angeles. Anybody know Sam? I don't. Put people into a brain scanner and asked them whether they believed various written statements. Some were simple, factual propositions, such as California is larger than Rhode Island. Others were matters of personal belief, such as there probably is no God. Harris found that the statements people believed to be true produced little characteristic brain activity. It was just a few flickers that would appear, and those flickers appeared in regions associated with reasoning and emotional reward. In contrast, disbelief produced longer and stronger activation in regions associated with deliberation and decision-making, as if the brain had to work harder to reach a state of disbelief. Statements the volunteers did not believe also activated regions associated with emotion, as did the other. But in this case, the emotion was in pain and disgust, and that was disbelief. So what they came to conclude in this which may or may not have been influenced by their beliefs, is that we are hardwired for belief. So they investigated that further. And they looked at various things that could have influenced this. And part of what they came to was this is a cultural and evolutionary thing that goes on in how we work and how our brains work. So way back when we were avoiding saber-toothed tigers, we were safer in groups, as often we still believe we are. And so people would conform to whatever was going on in that culture, so they'd fit in. They would be welcome, they would be safe. So the belief influenced by culture was for safety. And that's pretty much the way it is now, too. You know, we like to belong in groups. That's our nature. And we don't have to avoid saber-toothed tigers, but we can avoid other things like perhaps criticism or hurtful things, or not. So we're hardwired by their conclusions, by evolution, and by our brains for belief. So when you think about it, a small child comes into this world, a little baby, and they pretty much believe everything. And they accept this belief as true. And they really don't have a lot of discernment. So you can tell them any kind of silly thing and they believe it. And they incorporate that into their belief system. Well, how many of us are still doing that in a way? Not questioning what we're coming to believe. So we're hardwired for belief, and yet there's other stuff going on. And that other stuff is we have a couple things that are going for us, so that we're not just belief bots running around, accepting everything that we've been trained by culture, accepting everything we hear on the news, accepting everything we read in the newspaper. We get to think about things so that we're not just going around like, you know, those Roombas, the vacuums that go around and bump into something. We're not just bumping into our beliefs and backing up and going someplace else to bump into another belief. We're not boxed in. Because what we have going for us is first, that we can think about what we think about. We can think about what we think about. We can examine our thoughts. Those thoughts that come popping up that seem to just be a truth that we're taking in, we can say, oh, wait a minute. And we can say it, oh, that's interesting, rather than, that's stupid. But we can think about what we are coming to believe, what is being evidenced in the way we think, the way we speak, and the actions we take that are in reaction to something. We can stop and look and choose how we're going to respond. We can stop and look and see what that is and say, where did that come from? How did I come to think this way? And so that's a great thing that we have going for us. And the other thing that we have going for us is that we are inseparably connected to an infinite intelligence. So we'll get there in a moment, but first I want to tell you a little story and show you a demonstration. I was reading a magazine on a plane recently. It seems I spend a lot of time in planes and rental cars. But in this particular magazine was an interview with the astrophysicist Neil deGrasse Tyson. And I read it, I got all excited, and I came up with this thing, the possibility of, the perimeter of possibilities. And I could have sworn it was in that article. But when I went back a couple months later to read it, it wasn't in there at all.